My very first impression of Portland was the the arches across 3rd Street. We got off the train, and then we walked up there to 3rd Street, and I saw those arches, and I thought it was heaven. I never saw anything so rich and pretty in my whole life. There were practically no cars, and there weren't many paved streets. The through streets, like we call them, are paved. Like I lived on Mount Tabor on Thorburn Avenue, and then the only east and west street from Thorburn Avenue was down to Burnside that ended at 70th. And then you went to Gleason, and then about every 4th or 5th cross street would be paved. But otherwise, there wasn't. And what few cars were only puttering along about 25 miles an hour. And in the summertime, I know my mother would give me a sack lunch, and I'd go over to Rocky Butte and meet over there, be a bunch of other kids. We'd play all day and go home in time for supper, and nobody worried. You had only 2 cross sections of traffic. There was at 82nd and Stark, and 82nd and Gleason. You only cross streets, so traffic was no concern. Oh yes, yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was like the Oaks, only it was a small part of it. I remember I was about 10 years old, and they had a cage setting up on a pole, and a cherry-colored cat up there. And you paid a nickel, and you could go up and climb a little ladder and see the cherry-colored cat. He was black. That was his black cherry-colored. And you'd climb up there and look in, and everybody'd laugh at you.
May get lower, things are slow, may get slower. Hey, hey, I'm glad to say there's no depression in love. Bankers sad, getting sadder, times are bad, doesn't matter. Hey, hey, I'm glad to say there's no depression in love. Folks go right on making love, and how it's enjoyed. When the moon is up above, nobody's unemployed. Everywhere there's a Lizzie with a pair who are busy. Hey, hey, I'm glad to say there's no depression in love.
I had on my uniform, I mentioned before, it took 3 weeks to get our uniform, and I only had it 2 or 3 days, and it was smart looking and clean and neat, and we had a drunk stumble around in the street, and my partner pulled the car over, and we got out, and went over to him, and he looked at me, and I says, come on, we want to take you under arrest. And he looked at me and says, I got kids older than you. And he said, and you're not going to arrest me. And I thought, oh, a fight with my new uniform on. And all at once he turned around to my partner, who was an older guy, said, you arrest me. The district goes from Burnside to Powell and the river to 39th. And at night, it was the busiest district in Portland. We'd get average 4 calls, and then we had to control the traffic at the when the farmers would come in, and at the early morning market. We had to gas the cars. We had to put on a jacket or a coat to stoke the fire. Had a sawdust burner in it, and we were busy all night, and that was great. It can get awful boring in an outlying district in the early nights, morning when there's nothing to do. The second night I was on Vice, and like I told you earlier, I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me, and I walked into a bar downtown, and the bartender says, how you doing, Lieutenant? I was in plain clothes, no nothing. And my mugshot was on the mirror on the back. One of the Vice Squad men was selling my mugshot around town to the bars at $5 a piece. So, Yankee ingenuity. So I moved in, but quick. And by the way, he resigned from the police department and became a judge over in Vancouver. And he retired over there as a judge. Our car radioed down. It was chasing his stolen car, and it was about a mile away, and it was coming down Front Street, which is on the harbor, and the harbor patrol was right there. So I ran out of the office, went across the street, and I see him coming down the street miles an hour, and so in the car I got behind the telephone pole, and when it went past me, I shot at the tires. That was wrong, and I had told patrolman that was wrong. You don't shoot at a fleeing vehicle. And I got a lot of razzing too for that. But anyway, I did hit the tire, and I didn't know it. They just turned by, and it went about a mile down, and the tire got flat. The guy had to stop. And so I guess it must have been 30 years later. I was talking to a retired cop, and he brought it up. They never let me forget it. At the beginning of the parade, there was a professor at Lewis and Clark College, which he claimed was in control of a lot of these college agitators. And I guess he did have some control over, but he told us, let me march at the head of the parade with these agitators. It's going to tear the town apart. So, okay. So, we know where this group was going to organize. And there was 100, and I think about 120 of them, radicals. He thought. And he led the parade, and he held his hands like this, like some angel, walking ahead of the parade with all of his group of radicals that he was controlling. But he didn't know that 90 of them were policemen.